not all of them are produced in this country. We know that we have the locally manufactured ones that may not be under control or that might not be prohibited. Why I'm mentioning these things is because we cannot talk about the tree and forget the branches, or talk about the tree and the branches and forget about some of the fruits that it bears. So if we want to look at this thing holistically, we have to factor all those issues and not just limit ourselves to what is provided for in the Act with regards to drugs that are prohibited and drugs that are under control. Now, as I was saying, we know that most of these drugs come from outside, either it being prohibited drugs like cannabis, or it being controlled drugs like the diazepam, clonazepam, and the increasing rate of abuse of alcoholic beverages and substances among our youth, and other kinds of drugs that today are alien to us, in a sense that when people talk about, we talk about this NPS, what we call new psychoactive substances that are readily available in the market. So now, looking at the situation, looking at the COVID situation, it means that life is not as it used to be. Things are not as normal as they used to be. The officers are complementing other institutions, other security institutions, their effort with regards to the regulations that have been put in place. One. Two, many institutions were asked to reduce their workforce in order to curb or reduce or prevent the spread of the disease. So it means that the strength that was readily available yesterday is not the strength that is available today. And thirdly, you can realize that we have very porous borders. So if we reduce strength, it means that you are not able to police all these areas effectively. Even without COVID, it's a challenge. Talk less of the situation where COVID comes in now. So it means that there are many vulnerable situations and areas that are not well policed, and these drugs can really find themselves into the market. Because why do I say this? If we want to talk about, let's look at the common drugs that are found in the Gambia. Cannabis, naturally, in the Gambia and across the globe, account for the bulk of the seizure of anti-narcotic agencies. You have other issues. Cocaine might be available, but because it is very expensive and it's not affordable to everybody. But then there is crack cocaine. And today, you are having situations where you arrest people with cocaine, analysis is done on the drugs, they find traces of tramadol or ephedrine in some of this. So which means crack cocaine is readily available for the person who cannot afford to buy the cocaine. And now this crack cocaine is very potent, highly addictive, and very, very dangerous. So if you move from that also, you have issues relating to the abuse of controlled drugs like diazepam. In fact, I was discussing with somebody today who told me of a new substance or drug that is in the market that this youth can now use, and you can go 2 to 3 days without sleeping. And remember, they do not even know the chemical composition of some of these drugs. There are no proper laboratory standards. Then if you move from that, okay, you go to the other substances. You have a lot of energy drinks today around that have alcoholic beverages that are readily available in supermarket and mini markets. And we know that as these people develop tolerance, it becomes very, very difficult for them to use one specific kind of drug. They use a combination of different types of drugs. So this is a problem. Now, when we want to look at this and we look at its impact on, or the correlation on how this affects with regards to the situation of COVID. Now, I spoke initially about constraints and challenges with regards to combating this at the supply front. Now, let's go to the demand front. Now, what is happening? Remember, people used to go to work, and the more time most of these people spend at their workplaces, the lesser time perhaps for them to socialize on other activities. But now, most businesses are on a standstill. Most youths that go to do menial or casual jobs, contractual jobs, are not readily available. It means that they have more time at hand in order for them to socialize. And now, this socialization also has a financial cost that is attached. Because when they have to socialize, it means that those who abuse this drug, the drug need to be readily available. If it is not readily available, you need to look for an approximate area or very close area or any other area where you can have it. And now, this creates the situation to those who cannot afford to have it. How do they fund this their lifestyle? Now, when we've talked about that, we will now look at what happened when they socialize and what are the advices that are given. Before we even come to the medical component, let's look at some of the social issues that are associated with this. We are told to try as much as possible to maintain what? To maintain both physical and social distance. So, but now you will find out that because there is enough time, ample time, you have to move from home and go to the ghetto. And when they sit within the grand plazas, or as we call it, grand plazas, which are the same as ghetto, the issue of social distance, observing social distance, is not something that is considered. That is one. Two, I'm not saying all grand plazas or ghettos do not promote positive discussions. Sometimes when people sit in camps and in ghettos, the discussions that come up there are sometimes not necessarily based on facts, not based on things that are evidence-based. And thirdly, we know that hence the most appealing, affordable, readily available drug around is what? It's cannabis. It's very important for us to state this here. Now it's very, very difficult for you to see somebody that smoke only or abuse only cannabis. Moroccan hash is readily available. And now, when you talk about even this Moroccan hash, the use of this hash, you are not talking about it only being smoked. Through wrapping it with Rizla, you have many sisters and brothers, and not just the men, but even the girls or the women. Today, most of them abuse what? Shisha. And you'll be surprised to know that some try to use this Moroccan hash, or sometimes even mix it with crack cocaine, because this was an incident that I witnessed even at the beach, where a particular girl tried to smoke this shisha that was being smoked by some boys without realizing that it had already been mixed, because they have different flavors, but now they want to try to blend things so that the drug can become so potent. It was a mixture of a Moroccan hash with some, how to call it, powdered cocaine sprayed on it. And the moment she inhaled it, she went unconscious. She had to be rushed to the hospital. So now we look at the unhealthy lifestyle surrounding this, and we look at COVID.
Use some input on some factors to develop.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Are you with me?
Yes, yes, we are together.
Right. Now, we're talking about people doing what? People sitting, passing smoking joints among themselves, passing of alcoholic beverages among themselves. And what is happening? That is increasing the risk and the chances of sharing or spreading these diseases among themselves. Thirdly, you talk about people who abuse any kind of substance, because we all know that one key objective of these substances when they are abused is what? Mind altering. Has a direct effect and impact on the brain, on the mind, the thought processes, the behavior, and the conduct. So therefore, under the influence of these substances or these drugs, individuals will do things that they cannot ordinarily do had they not abused these drugs. With regards to those who smoke these drugs, remember we are told that COVID has so many other symptoms, but one key thing among it is that it affects and directly attack the respiratory system. And remember, those who smoke here, remember when we talk about these substances, we're not going to limit it to only cannabis. We bring even cigarette into play. The abuse of the canna, the abuse of the alcoholic beverages. Take, for example, before the curfew or even before the curfew, sit at a specific location. Hence, those that are here, all of us are one way or the other practitioners, directly or indirectly involved in providing care or in creating awareness and the like. Take us to any mini market, especially those within our populated areas. Take a stand, do a natural observation, and see the number and the amount of people who will come in and buy some of this. I'm telling you about gin that has to be diluted, but that they will drink raw. Some of these alcoholic drinks that have what? That have vodka in it or in them. And remember, the moment they take this thing, they start experiencing the high. What happens? It means that they now get themselves involved in risky behavior. The use of the face mask, as it is said, will not be considered. I will take another example of a situation that directly affected me when I was seated at church's stand where I used to sit. Someone was passing by, very drunk. I'm sure he's under the influence of something. It was just from one of the bars. He came, he wanted to greet us. And the two guys gave hand to him. I said, no, I'm not going to greet you. He said, no, well, what they're saying about this COVID thing is all nonsense, is lies. I said, well, fine. That is a lie to you. You choose not to believe in it, but I choose to believe in the advice of the medical experts. He gave a scenario that, okay, a couple of months back, I met with you before this COVID at the immigration office where they issue SEMLEX, where they issue ID card. You shook my hand. And after this incident, you will shake my hand. Okay, very clear, my brother. You said before the incident and after the incident. But he was very angry with me. And he was like, you even said that you are a Muslim and I'm here, I'm giving you a hand. And so that even shows that that was a debate for another issue because he doesn't understand those issues. My point that I'm trying to put with this analogy that I'm putting is that most of them are under these influences or under the influence of this substance. What happened? They engage in risky behavior. And also, as they continue to abuse these drugs, as I said, without taking into consideration, we are not only looking at just the misuse, the abuse, but we are even talking about the usage.
Yeah.
Because even that in itself affects the body, affects the mind, has an impact on both the physical, mental, and social well-being of the individual. And as such, like, I want to draw attention to something else. When I talk about the use of these alcoholic beverages, another thing that is highly being used, becoming socially acceptable and a norm, is the use of the shisha. And you can see people seated. And what happens? 10 to 9 to 8 people sharing and passing one pipe among each other. And I can tell you this, it's just, I'm not in the office. I wanted to share with you our data with regard to the seizure statistics from June to July. You will realize that although the interdiction at the border areas is reducing, but the arrest with regards to the urban centers, the highly populated areas, is increasing. And it means what? There is an increase in demand. And if you look around today, the number and the amount of people that are having substance use disorder related problems or drug-induced psychosis is on the increase. SAF having volunteers, social workers I'm seeing here, mental health care workers that I'm seeing here can attest to this. And they can tell you that because of the combination of the kind of drugs that these people use, it makes the diagnosis very difficult. It makes it very, very difficult for you to plan, for you to set up a proper treatment plan for these people. and the lack of the involvement of family members, support from family members, government itself with regard, because I saw an article today where the manager is complaining of the lack of medications. So therefore, in summary, because I am sure we started late.
I think you have now some 2 minutes, and then we will have some questions and answer session. But I guess after these 2 minutes, most of you will have to reconnect back to us. It's just taking you 30 seconds to reconnect back. Yeah.
Yes. So the point now is COVID has affected almost every sphere of life. And it has affected us with regard to the supply component, with regard to the interdiction processes. It affected the legal processes, that is through the criminal justice system, because the courts were closed. There was a time Mile 2 was not receiving anybody. So it means that even when you have offenders, they have right to be bailed. If it is for trafficking, it has to be at the high court, but if the court is not sitting, you cannot hold individuals against their right. You will be abusing their right. And at the same time, on the demand front, it also increases the chance or the chances of the spread of COVID among people, especially with regards to the social conduct and behavior of those who abuse these drugs. And not only that, it also affects their physical well-being. By abusing these drugs, it means that their immune system become weak, their immune or defense system within their body become very, very weak and defenseless. And most of these people, if they are attacked, what happens? It means that they stand at a very, very great chance and the likelihood of developing complications. So therefore, as people who work in this area, our work also is hampered. Hampered in the sense that our outreach programs have come to, if not a minimal of 0, but to 10. Because today, we cannot go to communities. We have to limit our programs. We cannot go to the schools. We limit our programs to what? To radio programs, to Zoom programs, video conferencing. And we know, see the struggle we went through in order for us to have this connection. And in fact, when we go to the radio, how many people listen to radio programs? What kind of program do you develop for the radio? So definitely, it is a challenge, and you can definitely see the impact of it in a sense that at the communal level, the rate at which drugs are being abused by people is on the increase. On that note, I will not want to take much of your time. I will limit it briefly at that, but we'll be open the floor for perhaps maybe my co-workers that are here who could have 1 or 2 things to add on this, to discuss it from a different perspective as well, before we open the lines, and then we welcome any other contribution or questions that will be asked. Because all those I'm seeing, most of the names that I'm seeing here are practitioners or are people who are working in areas that are one way or the other, directly or indirectly, colligated or connected to what we do, and could equally have experience